One of the myths that workers often have about hearing loss is that hearing loss due to loud noise will make conversations sound softer. And that's not necessarily the case. The telltale complaint of a noise-induced hearing loss is, I can hear you just fine, but it's just not clear. The words are distorted. Noise exposure typically causes a hearing loss in the high frequencies of the hearing range. Now, in speech and conversation, the high frequencies consist of sounds like s, k, t, f, ch, p, k. These high frequency sounds occur typically as the consonants in speech and conversation. So with a noise-induced hearing loss, if I was on the job and someone said, "Steve, watch out for that pipe," I would hear something without the high frequencies. It would sound something like, "Steve, watch out for that pipe." Now, can I fill in the gaps? Yes, a little bit. If I have visual cues like seeing the speaker's face, I could maybe fill in some of the gaps. But still, I would miss some of the clarity of that message. Or if I can't see the speaker's face, or perhaps I'm talking on the telephone and can't see the speaker, or he's turned around with his face facing another direction. Noise-induced hearing loss is a very odd occupational injury. First of all, it's painless. It causes no visible signs of damage. The ears don't bleed, there's no bruising. From the outside, it's hard to tell that someone has a hearing loss. You want to see what it looks like when the ear is completely wiped out by loud noise. It just looks normal on the outside. All of the damage is internal. A noise-induced hearing loss is very slow in progression. It can take years of noise exposure before we finally pick up that damage. It's also a permanent hearing loss. We don't have a pill, there's no rehabilitation, there's no therapy to get hearing back that's been damaged from loud noise. It's a permanent loss of hearing. But it's also very preventable. And hopefully we can give workers the tools that they can use to prevent that hearing loss on the job and off the job. One of the unseen handicaps from a noise-induced hearing loss comes on the social side of interactions. A few years ago, I was attending a safety conference where the first speaker at this safety conference was an employee of that company who was a manager. He had a noise-induced hearing loss and spoke for just 10 minutes from the heart, no script at all. He simply told what it was like to have a hearing loss. He said, "It's very easy to get along just fine on the job with my hearing loss. I've been working with the same people for several years. It's a very limited vocabulary that we use on the job. I can fairly well predict what's going to be said. I can fill in the gaps when I miss something with my hearing loss on the job. But if you put me in a social setting where I don't know the speaker or I don't know the topic of conversation, I'm lost." And this is the story he told. He said, "Recently my wife and I attended a holiday party, and an acquaintance came up to us and started conversing about old friends. He said, 'Oh, did you hear about Bill Smith? He was in his car driving down to Bunbury, and he got in a car accident and was killed.' And there was a pause, and this person looked at me expecting some kind of reaction, and I hadn't heard everything. So I said, 'Oh, isn't that nice?' I had heard Bill Smith getting in his car going down to Dunbury. I hadn't heard that he was in the accident and got killed." My wife pulled me aside and said, "Did you hear what he said? He said Bill got killed." "Oh no, I didn't hear that part of it." In a social setting, it's very difficult to fill in the gaps when you don't know the speaker or don't know what's being said.